Hello, and welcome to Catholicism in the Car. My name is Parker Zerbal. Okay, I want to continue talking about philosophy, and this time I want to lay out for you why I find philosophy so interesting. And this is also an exercise for me in order to really vocalize this. I don't know if I've ever vocalized this question, so this will be a time where we can think through this together, and maybe you will gain some insights from this. It might seem selfish that I'm doing something like this, where I'm just saying this is why I love philosophy. But I honestly don't mean it like that. I mean it as a sharing my own story, a way to share my own story for the benefit of others. Now, I am still an amateur in all this stuff. I don't claim to be an expert, but I do claim to be fairly knowledgeable about these things, and I would say conversant in them at least. So here we go. Why do I love philosophy? I think at its root, I love philosophy because I love getting down to the bottom of things, and not generally just how mechanisms work. Like the other day, my dad and I were taking apart a gas grill, and trying to figure out what was wrong with it. We had gotten 2 gas grills for free by some neighbors that he lives near, and we brought one up to his lake cottage, and then one was at my house. Neither of them ended up working properly, even though we were told they were going to work properly, right? And so we had to kind of dig through and do some problem solving to figure out what was wrong. And what's pretty funny is that at the end we deduced it must be the propane tank after we'd taken almost everything apart on one of them at least. We'd switched out some parts, and that helped, but it didn't completely solve the problem. It got it about, 60-70% of the way working there, where the thing could only get up to about 300 degrees, instead of before it could only get up to 150. So we made it a little better. So then we rolled it down to getting the propane tank switched out, and as of right now, we haven't had a chance to do that yet. So we'll see if that works. But anyway, I see philosophy as a much deeper form of that sort of, you might say, engineering mind, somebody who wants to really get down, a detective-like mind. You want to really get down to the bottom of things. You don't just want to stay on the surface. You want to dig in. And for me, philosophy is the way of doing that detective work upon, the basis of reality. So, on the one hand, doing that detective work on the basis of reality, trying to find out what is the basis for all of reality, what is the root of what is real. And then on a more epistemological level, so on the level of our understanding things, how we know things and understand things, I think it's fascinating to look into the history of ideas, and what people have thought throughout the centuries and throughout the millennia. If you go back all the way to who's considered probably the first Western philosopher, Thales of Miletus. Now, I'm testing my historical knowledge here, but I think he lived around 500 BC. It might be even earlier than that. Don't quote me on it. But he is the first Western philosopher that we have. I know that there are Eastern philosophers that go further back than that, and I believe there are some Egyptian and Babylonian even quote-unquote philosophers that go back further than Thales of Miletus. But generally, Thales is who we give the title of the first Western philosopher. Now, he didn't say much that we still have. Most of what we know of him is contained in Aristotle and Plato's works, and that's how we know most of what we know about him. And a lot of the pre-Socratics, those philosophers that came before Socrates, mostly how we know about them is through Plato and Aristotle. So I find the history of thought fascinating. but not for just its own sake. I find it fascinating because I want to know how we got to where we are today. So fundamentally, I think my interest in philosophy is for evangelical and apologetical reasons when it comes down to it. And then there's also like my own personal like edification from learning these things. I do get personal edification from learning these things because it opens my mind to understand how humanity really doesn't change. There's been this pernicious lie, I would say, over the last 200 years, where modern man thinks that he is superior to all human beings that came before him. And he thinks that mainly because of technology, because of the various and quite vast technological developments that modern man has made. Now, I think it's probably safe to claim that every human being living in their present is tempted to thinking that they're better than those who came before them. I think that's just part of human nature. But I do think in a particular way, man has done that over the last 200 years to an extent that he didn't before. And I think that's largely due to technology and to the advancements that mankind has made in that realm. Now, just because we've advanced in technology does not mean in any way that we have advanced in our understanding of reality at its core, in our understanding of philosophy. Everything I've read of ancient philosophers, medieval philosophers, pre-modern philosophers in general, is that they are as wise, if not much, much wiser than almost anyone I've met today or read today. Okay, so I also really enjoy philosophy for that historical aspect and getting to understand how people have viewed thought and what people have thought throughout human history, because it anchors me and it gives me like a mental community almost of thinkers, people that I can say, okay, well, this isn't a new thing. I mean, it's true, the proverb, the scriptural proverb, that there's nothing new under the sun. That is so true, so true. There's nothing new under the sun. Almost every modern philosophy has come about in some way or another in the past. Now, it might not have been in the certain combination that it is now, but you can piece every modern philosophy together by what came before. And I think it's a good thing. It shows that there's consistency in human thought in one level or another. So there's my thoughts on that, why I love philosophy. Thank you.
Oh, real quick, please feel free to subscribe to any of my podcasts on any of the podcast players. Find me on YouTube. Please subscribe. Like me on Facebook, like the Catholicism Car channel on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're all there. Catholicism Car. And then I also have a Patreon account if you wish to support what I do at this podcast and this YouTube channel. And you can also support us on Anchor.fm. There's a support button there you click on. I also have links to all this on my website's support page at www.catholicisminthecar.com.